Hey guys, welcome to another movie review. Today I'm going to be talking about the 2018 remake of the film A Star is Born. This is the directorial debut of actor Bradley Cooper. Excuse me. Bradley Cooper is known for films like The Hangover, Silver Linings Playbook. He's been in Joy. He's been in The Yes Man. He's been in tons of things. He's more than likely been in the film industry long enough where I'm sure at least all of you have seen at least one big film that he's done by now. And then I think Lady Gaga has acted in other projects before, but this is kind of one of her first big film projects she's acted in. But in this film, A Star is Born, you guys, I believe this is the fourth version of this film being made. There was one with Judy Garland a long time ago. There was one with Barbra Streisand. I don't know who was in the third one, if there was one made, but I do know this is kind of like the third or fourth version of the story, I believe. And like in all the other versions, but with more of a fresh voice and kind of a different take on the whole story, done by Bradley Cooper very brilliantly, I gotta say. More than likely, this film and the other versions of the story basically have the same story from what I know about them, but pretty much, for those who don't know what Star is Born is about at all, and without spoiling the movie. Basically, it's about a veteran musician who has problems with drugs and alcohol. He's very famous, but he's still kind of struggling with these addictions that he has. While this is going on, he meets a young musician who's played by Lady Gaga at this nightclub. He loves her music so much, and he's so attracted to her that he basically wants to have her at his next concert and even give her a spotlight in the concert to kind of sing a song herself and stuff like that. They had this really successful date where they kind of came up with a song together, so that's kind of what started the whole thing with that. So they get very close. This young girl, played by Lady Gaga, attracts all these music agents and music managers who basically want to make her the next big music star, give her her own album, give her some music videos, all this big stuff, give her her own world tour and stuff like that. And while this is going on, Bradley Cooper's character is really struggling. He's this veteran musician that's just been doing alcohol and drugs for a long time. He's really struggling with it now. It's getting to the point where he almost can't perform his own music anymore. So while this young girl is rising to fame, she's also having to deal with this guy that she's romantically involved with, played by Bradley Cooper, who's struggling with all this drugs and alcohol. And she has to decide what is more important, her career or carrying this man around with her in her career and potentially damaging it by basically just bringing him around with her while pursuing this big music career. But overall, guys, I loved A Star is Born. This might be one of my favorite films of the year. Probably not my number one favorite film of 2018, but this is probably going to be in my top 10 list unless other films that come out later this year really knock it out of the park. I really feel like that this film really knocked it out of the park for me. I thought Bradley Cooper's voice was very fresh for this movie. I felt his directorial effort was very strong. This is a great, strong first effort for a director. He really knows how to handle a great story and great characters, and obviously knows how to act really well, say based off of his previous films that he's acted in and stuff like that. So let's go into my positives and negatives of what I love so much about A Star Is Born. Like I just mentioned, Bradley Cooper's fresh voice as a director was very, very positive, very, very amazing to witness for the first time. I think he's been acting in the film industry long enough where he now knows kind of his own voice, his own interpretation of a story. It really is fresh. It really does feel like, even though this story has been around for a long time, I believe, like I said, all the way dating back to the Judy Garland version of the story, um, he really found a fresh voice here. He really made it feel more modern and more kind of current with the times and kind of where music is kind of right now and stuff like that. So he really did provide a fresh voice as a director. He kind of approached things differently. He used more flashbacks, used more editing techniques and ways to kind of express the way certain characters feel about certain things without me ruining anything. And that's one thing about this film I thought felt very, very fresh was he really created a sense of perspective with the characters. So if a character's having drug problems, like his character, they show kind of what's going on with his hearing or the way he's looking at things or the way he's interpreting everything. Or with Lady Gaga's character, if she feels nervous or feels like she really can't write a song on her own very well. The film really depicts these things in a very interesting way, and I think that really goes back to Bradley Cooper as a director and really adding a really fresh voice to the story like the way Bradley Cooper did it. This film also makes a point with a very strong impact. I can't spoil the ending of this film. It's just too good for me to spoil in a video, and I don't really do spoilers in my videos at all, really. I really try to avoid that. But I feel this film really makes a point. It really does have a very impactful wrecking ball point in this movie that really hits you hard in that last scene. Like I said, I can't spoil what it is. It really does make a point. It really does leave an impact on you. It really does show when you're famous, when people look up to you, when people are inspired by you, it really is important that you really take care of yourself and take care of your health and take care of the people you love in your life. It really does show just how damaging it can be when somebody really famous and somebody well liked goes downhill. It really does show that very well. And also another thing that's kind of unique about this film is even though it does kind of show something in a very depressing manner, I never really felt down in this movie. I really did feel optimistic and positive the whole time. It definitely depicts something that's very difficult to watch, I guess, at sometimes, but the film has such an optimistic way of looking at things and has a positive way of looking at music. It really is a very inspirational movie. Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga give great performances. I'll be shocked if they don't win Oscars for this movie. They both are amazing in this. Lady Gaga, for sure. I was not expecting anything from her performance. She blew me away. I was completely blown away by her performance in this film. I loved her character. I loved her music. I loved how invested I felt in her character. I just cared about these people. I really did want them to succeed whenever they felt bad, whenever they failed at something. I wanted them to succeed and kind of stand back up and get going again. I just felt hurt when Bradley Cooper's character was suffering from alcohol and drugs. His character was so inspirational. He was such a big part of this girl's life, and I really felt invested in these two people. These performances are just so great. The film also just shows how music can inspire people, not just the musicians who create the music, but the people who listen to the music. Whenever these characters are in concert, whether it is Lady Gaga, whether it is Bradley Cooper, whether it is another character, it really does show kind of how big music can be, how an event it can be, how big it can inspire people. It really is a film that just shows how strong music can be and how it can really create a voice for somebody. And there's even a scene in this film where Bradley Cooper's telling Lady Gaga, it's not so much the skills you bring to the world, it's not so much the songs and the lyrics you bring to the world, it's the voice you create for that song. It really, that's kind of what separates the good musicians from the bad ones, is a sense of really telling that song in a creative, different way that's different from any other song in the world. The way you do it, the way you add your own persona, and the way you personally decide to pursue that song and sing it, whether it is high-pitched notes or low ones, or the rhythm or the beats, or however you're going to pursue the song. It really is how you make it, how you tell it, how you, because, and that's kind of what's great about this film too. Even though this is a very old concept for a movie, it's how you tell it. It's how you bring something new to the table. And I think that's what's really going to resonate with people, is the way you tell it. And I think that's something, the way the music is told in this film too. It really is strong stuff. This is also the best ending of a film I've seen so far in 2018. Maybe not the best ending of all time. This is the best ending in 2018 I've seen so far, though. It really is a strong movie ending. The theater I was in was completely quiet by the end of the movie. It really does hit you hard by the end of the movie, as far as telling a strong message by the time the film is over with. I really just felt really inspired by the ending of the movie. I also like how this film has an interesting way of kind of showing musicians in the public eye. They show musicians at grocery stores. They show musicians going to public neighborhoods. They show musicians going to restaurants and to bars that just have regular people and not really necessarily famous people. I like how they show that. I thought Bradley Cooper had an interesting way of doing that. His character, he was famous, he was a celebrity, but hey, he wanted to go to the regular bars that everybody else was going to. He really didn't care that he was a celebrity. He just wanted to have a drink with everybody else and wanted to talk to everybody who maybe isn't as famous as he is. And I thought that was kind of interesting. It's kind of interesting how celebrities, they like being famous sometimes, and maybe sometimes they don't. Maybe sometimes they just want to fit in with everybody else. It's okay if you want to take a selfie with them and so forth. But the film really does have an interesting way of celebrities in the public eye, and how sometimes they like that and don't like that. And the film kind of plays around with both ends of that. The film does also show the damages of fame and alcohol, how fame can really help somebody, but also kind of ruin somebody at times, and how alcoholism can really drastically change the way you think and approach things, and how it can really ruin your life if you're not careful with it. So it was really great stuff that Bradley Cooper got to work with in this movie. For my negatives of A Star is Born, and maybe it's probably not going to be my number one favorite film of the year, but definitely on my top 10 somewhere, hopefully and praying. Um, for my negatives of the movie, I think overall this film is about 15 minutes too long. I think this film is about 2 hours and 20 minutes, and I think for a story like this, 2 hours and 5 minutes is probably about the most you'll ever need to really tell the story in just the right ways. I feel about 15 minutes of this film could have been easily taken out. I would have been just as impacted. I think the story would have flowed better as a result. 15 minutes could have been trimmed out of this movie very easily, but with a potentially better editor, I think. Dave Chappelle has a character in this film that he plays, and he plays Bradley Cooper's best friend in the movie. There's a lot of scenes that deal kind of with him, with Dave Chappelle's family kind of getting together with Bradley Cooper. I would say there's one chunk of the movie where it's kind of a big focus for a while, and thankfully they don't go back to it after that scene happens. But I feel when it's going on, I felt like it wasn't furthering the story in any way. I like Dave Chappelle's character; it's a very likable character. But once they introduce kind of other members of his family, it's just kind of the film kind of comes to a halt for a couple of minutes, and it just kind of hurt the pacing of the film for me in a little bit. They also depict Lady Gaga's home life in certain scenes, kind of life with her dad, and how the dad and the friends kind of always get together because they all drive cars for people. They get people out to places. They're almost kind of like Uber slash taxi drivers, I guess. But they do show a lot of scenes with Lady Gaga at the house and just kind of the guys goofing off and watching something on YouTube that maybe Lady Gaga or Bradley Cooper got involved with and stuff like that. And they just really didn't feel necessary to me. It was just like, okay, I think they could have just focused on more scenes with Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper, because that's really where the film really ticks. I think the chemistry between Lady Gaga and Bradley Cooper is one of the better elements of this movie, and it's really too bad there's scenes like the Lady Gaga home life scenes that really kind of interfere with that kind of. But overall, I'm going to give A Star is Born a 9 out of 10. It's a great movie. I have tons of great things to say about it. It's a very inspiring movie that really hits you in that final scene. Like I said, it is about 15 minutes too long. I think a better editor could have done a better job making sure this film would have been a little better at a better pace and a better runtime. And like I said, the Dave Chappelle family scenes I think could have been removed completely, and some of the Lady Gaga home life scenes either could have been trimmed down or also removed completely, and it already would have been a better film as a result. So 9 out of 10 for me. I really like this film. I highly recommend you see A Star is Born, and hopefully this film will make it onto my top 10 like I'm sure it will.